The Space Shuttle Discovery is set to make more history. It'll soon wrap up its final journey into space and back. That touchdown will make history, wrapping up more than a quarter century of space missions by the spacecraft. John Zarrella is there at Cape Canaveral in Florida, and he joins us now. John, what are the folks at NASA saying about Discovery making its window?
Looking absolutely great. The mission management team, Aisha, has just a few minutes ago given the go for the Deorbit Burn, which will take place about 15 minutes from now. At that point, the shuttle will be over the Indian Ocean and begin its descent down into the atmosphere. Right now, finishing up its last lap around the Earth, the last time, its victory lap, if you will. 39 times Discovery has been in orbit, more than any other shuttle. And when it lands, it will have traveled 148 million miles. So again, looking for a landing here at 11:57:26 Eastern Time at the Kennedy Space Center. Aisha.
We're just showing our viewers to the right of you the landing strip there at Kennedy Space Center. It's a live picture of where Discovery will land. Hopefully it will make its window. Right now it is looking good. I guess that's the shot of the command center there. John, let me ask you, on this bittersweet day for those involved with the shuttle program, how are they marking this final flight?
Well, you know, a lot of the people, what they did, particularly the teams that worked on this vehicle, they were given the opportunity when it first rolled out to the launch pad to have its families there to see that roll out, which they usually don't do. They've also been allowed to take pictures near and up close to the vehicle before it went out to the launch pad. And a lot of them will be gathered here at the stands that are just down to my left over here, and they will watch it come in for the last time. But it is tough because a lot of folks are losing their jobs here. 7,000 people by the end of the year will have lost their jobs when the final shuttle flies. There's 2 more to go, one in April, the shuttle Endeavor, and then Atlantis will fly the end of June, maybe early July, and then that'll be it. The space shuttle program will be over. But yes, today, definitely bittersweet. And I know I talked to Commander Steve Lindsay, several months ago, and he told me it's going to be real tough when he brings Discovery in, and he says as it lands here, wheels stop for the last time.
They certainly do. One last question for you, John. What happens to Discovery after this its final flight?
Well, a lot of people are going to have an opportunity to see these vehicles up close. Discovery is scheduled to go to the Smithsonian probably about a year from now. It's unclear where Endeavor and Atlantis will go. There are museums all over the country vying for them. NASA wants $28.8 million for each of those vehicles. Wow. Kennedy Space Center is vying for one. The Air and Space Museum up in Dayton, Ohio at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base wants one. They want one at the Intrepid Museum in New York. There aren't enough to go around. So it's a real tough competition. And they have to have a special building built specifically for the vehicles that, are climate controlled so that they can keep them and have them on display. And millions of people will finally get an opportunity to be right up close to these orbiters. It's going to be pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it certainly is. John Zarrella, you're a very lucky man. You've got to see all of this happening firsthand. I will go to see them wherever they are. John Zarrella in Florida, thank you.
Minutes from immortality. After hundreds of millions of kilometers in orbit, the space shuttle Discovery is cleared for one final landing at the Kennedy Space Center.
Live from CNN Center, this is The Brief with Jim Clancy.
And this is the half hour where we try to bring you the most important news of the day and put it in a little bit sharper focus with some analysis.
These have been the voyages of the Space Shuttle Discovery. Her 30-year mission, to seek out new science, to build new outposts, to bring nations together on the final frontier, to boldly go and do what no spacecraft has done before.
Recognize that voice? That's right, William Shatner, or better known as Captain Kirk from the sci-fi series Star Trek, waking up the astronauts on the final mission of Space Shuttle Discovery today. The spacecraft has now left orbit. It's expected to land at Kennedy Space Center in just about a half an hour from now. Fantastic voyage. You know, the landing is going to mark the end of Space Shuttle Discovery's very final flight, its entire adventure in space. This is the oldest of NASA's 3 remaining shuttles, flyable shuttles anyway. When it rolls to a stop on that runway, it will have traveled more than, get this, 238 million kilometers. It was first launched all the way back in 1984. Think about it, that more than 25 years ago. Well, it's all going to come to an end in Florida, where John Zarrella joins us with the latest. John, you've seen Discovery go up quite a number of times.
Yeah, I sure have. Quite a few of those 39 times. And, you know, Discovery just now finishing up, I guess we could call it its victory lap, Jim. Its 202nd revolution around the Earth on this mission alone. Right now, the vehicle is just off the coast of South America, probably about 1,000 miles off the coast of South America, off of Chile. Eventually, it will make its way up over Central America and then pass just to the west of Cuba before finally crossing over Florida, south of Tampa Bay, and then over Kissimmee near Disney World, and then making its way here. It's gotten quite a bit gusty here now. It was a lot calmer earlier this morning, Jim, but most of the wind is actually in the direction that is not a crosswind, so it's not a bad thing. I got to tell you, Jim, I must have seen 15 buses pull up in the last 5-10 minutes. Probably hundreds and hundreds of people, NASA workers here to watch this last mission of Discovery. Jim?
All right, we'll be watching too. John Zarrella there at the Kennedy Space Center. Thanks. And you know, our question of the day, we asked you this: what are your favorite memories of the Space Shuttle? Well, here's some of your responses. Twitter, Brian in Guam says, watching a launch in person, it's as if watching the very greatness of America's spirit and ingenuity. Truly a sight to behold. I've seen it. I agree. Brigida in Poland tweeted this: tragic accidents that happen, but mostly the spirit of discovery and hope for future space travel. Out on Facebook, Kevin said, I remember fondly getting a space shuttle model when I was a kid after seeing it on TV. It's still unopened up in the attic. All right. There's some of what you thought about, a lot more that were out there. Thanks for sharing your memories. World Sport, straight ahead. That has to be it for me. I'm Jim Clancy, and you've been briefed.
Herzlich willkommen zu einer N24-Sondersendung. Wir warten auf die Landung der US-Raumfähre Discovery. Sie ist auf dem letzten Heimflug zur Erde und wird dann auch dort bleiben. Und damit geht eine ganze Ära zu Ende. Das Schiff mit 6 Astronauten an Bord soll, wie gesagt, in gut einer halben Stunde in Cape Canaveral landen. Danach wird die Raumfähre nach fast 27 Jahren im Dienst der Raumfahrt zum Museumsstück. Ziel ihrer letzten Mission im All waren Wartungs- und Reparaturarbeiten an der Internationalen Raumstation ISS. Und diesen besonderen Moment begleiten mit mir unser Luft- und Raumfahrtexperte Mick Locher bei mir im Studio und Stefan Strote in Washington und später dann auch noch Professor Ulrich Walter, Astronaut. Jetzt aber erstmal zu dir, Mick Locher. Der Abflug war keine Routine und die Landung wird es auch nicht sein, oder?
Die Landung ist nie eine Routine, denn man muss sich vorstellen, so ein Space Shuttle kommt ohne Antrieb daher, es kommt aus dem Weltall, es wird durch die Atmosphäre abgebremst, ist heiß, ganz heiß auf der Bauchseite und muss dann genau mit einem Versuch die Landebahn erwischen. Das soll jetzt gleich passieren. In einer halben Stunde soll das Space Shuttle ja in Florida programmgemäß landen. Aber es verlangt von den Piloten das Allerhöchste ab, denn sie müssen das Ding, ein Kommandant hat mir mal erzählt, in Houston, man muss das Ding fliegen wie ein Ziegelstein. Also da gibt es nicht viel zu tun. Man muss es segeln wie ein Segelflugzeug und man muss sauber reinkommen und dann genau diese Landebahn treffen in Florida, wo das Space Shuttle ja vor einigen Tagen abgehoben hat.
Und mit den Space Shuttle gab es auch immer wieder technische Probleme, vor allem was das Hitzeschutzschild angeht.
Das Hitzeschutzschild ist kritisch. Es sind ungefähr 24.000 Kacheln am Bauch der Raumfähre angebracht. Und wenn die abfallen, wenn einige nur abfallen, dann kann es sein, dass die Reibungshitze beim Wiedereintritt dafür sorgt, dass wie ein Schneidbrenner sich die extreme Hitze 1500, 1600, 1700 Grad durch das Raumschiff fräsen. Und wir wir haben es ja erlebt, es ist ein Raumschiff, die Columbia, schon mal zu Schaden gekommen, so schwer zu Schaden gekommen, dass alle Besatzungsmitglieder sterben mussten, weil eine Tragfläche dann buchstäblich abbrach. Und das war im kritischen Moment etwa von jetzt an gerechnet, na sagen wir mal 20 Minuten von uns entfernt. Also da müssen wir noch mal die Luft anhalten, ob alles gut geht. Aber seit diesem Unglück 2003 kam es ja nicht mehr zu einer Tragödie mit den Space Shuttles, obwohl sie uralt sind.
Uralt heißt, sie stammen eigentlich aus den 70ern, wurden natürlich immer wieder verändert. Aber wie viel Technik aus den 70er Jahren steckt noch in der Discovery?
Na, relativ viel. Es gibt unzählige 1000 Schalter im Cockpit. Es wurde ja immer wieder, oder die ganze Flotte, sind ja nur noch 3 Raumschiffe, die übrig sind, die wurden immer wieder auf den neuesten Stand gebracht. Aber natürlich stammt die ganze Technologie aus einer anderen Zeit, aus einer anderen Epoche. Und heute setzt man ja daran zu bauen für die nächsten 25, 30, 40 Jahre. Und da geht es ja nicht mehr darum, sagen wir mal, einen Lastwagen zu bauen, der zur Raumstation hochfliegt, sondern ein Raumschiff zu bauen, das die Menschen zum Mond und darüber hinaus bis zum Mars bringt. Das stellt ja an ein Raumschiff ganz andere Ansprüche. Und da sind die Amerikaner jetzt gefordert, ihren Ehrgeiz auch wirklich zu erfüllen und dieses Raumschiff, sagen wir mal, in 5, 6, 7, 8 Jahren fertigzustellen. Und so lange müssen die Amerikaner, wenn die 3 Flüge, wovon einer ja jetzt gerade zu Ende geht heute Abend, wobei diese Ära dann, wenn sie im Sommer endgültig zu Ende ist, angewiesen sind auf die russischen Raketen, auf die Sojus-Raketen. Und das ist natürlich schon für manchen Amerikaner eine gewisse Beeinträchtigung der Lebensqualität, wenn er weiß, meine Kollegen, die Astronauten, fliegen mit einem russischen Raumschiff zur Raumstation und nicht mehr mit einem amerikanischen.
Das eine ist natürlich der Nationalstolz, das andere ist aber auch die technische Seite. Sind die Soyuz-Kapseln wirklich die besseren Raumfähren?
Ja, das ist eine gute Frage, Steffi. Ich würde mal sagen, sie sind einfach sehr erprobt. Über viele, viele Jahre, über 3 Jahrzehnte fliegen diese Soyuz-Kapseln immer wieder zur Raumstation, in die Erdumlaufbahn. Sie haben nur den einen Nachteil, sie sind relativ klein. Man kann nicht viel mitnehmen in einen Space Shuttle, in den Raumgleiter, der jetzt hier gleich landen wird, in die Discovery beispielsweise, bekommt man ja bis zu 30 Tonnen Nutzlast. Das kann eine Soyuz-Kapsel nicht bieten. Da passen vielleicht 6, 7 Tonnen rein und nur 3 Mann, die ganz beengt zur Raumstation fliegen. Und das war ja die Idee des Space Shuttles, dass man eine eierlegende Wollmilchsau konstruiert, die sowohl 6, 7 Leute mitnimmt zur Raumstation und gleichzeitig unglaublich viel Fracht. Das hat das Space Shuttle gebracht. Man dachte allerdings, na gut, ein Start kostet $10 Millionen. In Wirklichkeit hat jeder Start ungefähr $500 Millionen gekostet. Und es gab viele Startunterbrechungen, weil es ja Tragödien gab, 86 und 2003. Und um dann die Flotte so weit wieder hinzubekommen, dass man gesagt hat, okay, wir können einen Start wagen, hat das nochmal Milliarden gekostet. Und man muss zum Schluss einfach sagen, die Space Shuttles sind alt, aber bewährt, aber sie haben eigentlich auch ausgedient.
Sagte Mick Locher. Wir wollen noch mal ganz kurz für die Zuschauer erklären, was hier eigentlich gerade passiert, denn wir warten auf die Landung der US-Raumfähre Discovery in gut 25 Minuten, nicht mehr ganz. Und Mick hat es gesagt, es ist ein ganz kritischer Moment jetzt, denn jetzt fliegt die Raumfähre quasi wie ein Ziegelstein, ist kaum noch zu steuern.
Zu steuern schon, aber die Piloten können nichts machen. Der Kommandant und der Pilot sind darauf angewiesen, dass alle Wiedereintrittswinkel in die Erdatmosphäre stimmen, dass die Computer richtig berechnet worden sind und dass dann alles gut geht. Das haben sie im Simulator 100.000 Mal geübt. Sie sind alles erfahrene Piloten. Eigentlich geht da nichts schief.
Hoffen wir, dass wir das heißt, auf jeden Fall noch mal den Atem anhalten. Und in der Leitung haben wir jetzt auch Professor Ulrich Walter, Astronaut. Herr Professor Walter, was denken Sie, geht in den 6 Astronauten an Bord jetzt in diesen wenigen Minuten noch bis zur Landung vor?
Also die Astronauten haben bereits den Rückkehr zur Erde vorbereitet. Es gibt so einen Deorbit Burn, das heißt, die sitzen in ihren Sitzen, übrigens ziemlich heiß. Durch die Raumanzüge geht ja nichts durch, das heißt, man schwitzt da drin, man sehnt sich wirklich danach, jetzt wirklich zur Erde zurückzukommen. Und es sind jetzt die letzten 20 Minuten, das heißt, sie sind jetzt gerade in der Phase, wo sie die maximale Erhitzung haben. Das heißt, auf der Unterseite des Shuttles ist die maximale Hitze von ungefähr 1600, 1700 Grad Celsius. Das geht sehr an die Hitzekacheln dran und man hat im Augenblick auch keine Kommunikationsverbindung zum Shuttle. Erst wenn es aus diesem Loch sozusagen herauskommt, dann kommt die Kommunikation, dann sehen wir, was ist.
Was müssen die Astronauten jetzt in diesen wenigen Minuten vor der Landung alles beachten? Können sie überhaupt noch aktiv handeln?
Nein, das Einzige, was wirklich gut funktionieren muss, ist die Software an Bord des Shuttles, denn der Commander und der Pilot haben keine Erfahrung bei diesen extrem hohen Geschwindigkeiten. Das Shuttle fliegt mit 28.000 Kilometer pro Stunde durch die Atmosphäre, und zwar durch eine extrem dünne Atmosphäre. Kein Mensch, kein Pilot hat Erfahrung, wie man unter diesen Umständen ein Shuttle steuert. Das heißt, das Shuttle steuert sich selber, ein Autopilot macht das, und erst die letzten 5 Minuten, das wird dann vom Commander geflogen. Das heißt, die Astronauten sitzen da drin, man beobachtet die Instrumente, schaut, ob alles richtig ist. Unten im Middeck sitzen die anderen Astronauten und man merkt so ganz langsam, wie die Schwere so langsam zunimmt.
Jetzt haben Sie es angesprochen, eines der Hauptprobleme, nämlich die Hitze. Und es gibt immer wieder Probleme mit dem Hitzeschild. Warum ist das so schwierig in den Griff zu bekommen?
Das liegt daran, weil diese Kacheln sehr kratzempfindlich sind und brüchig. Das heißt, sie sind zwar hitzeempfindlich, aber wenn Sie da mit einem Nagel drüber gehen, dann spleißt die Oberfläche auf. Und das bedeutet auch, selbst kleinste Teile, und das Shuttle verliert ab und zu mal Schaumstoff. Das fliegt auf diese Kacheln, und weil sie so brüchig sind, gehen sie kaputt und platzen auf, und damit wird das Shuttle empfindlicher. Das ist ein Grundproblem beim Shuttle, vor allen Dingen deswegen, weil dieser Schaumstoff am externen Tank über dem Shuttle liegt. Das heißt, beim Aufstieg fällt dieser Schaumstoff auf die Kacheln und kann sie beschädigen. Ein Designfehler, der hoffentlich bei zukünftigen Systemen nicht mehr gemacht wird.
Und der vor allem auch dazu führte, dass 2003 die Columbia abgestürzt ist.
Ja.
Und Sie waren selbst an Bord der Columbia, allerdings 10 Jahre zuvor. Würden Sie heute noch mal in einen Shuttle steigen?
Ja. Das würde ich, denn die Amerikaner haben daraus gelernt. Sie wissen, wie man sowas jetzt in den Griff kriegt. Sie hatten gedacht, bis zum Jahre 2003, sie hätten es im Griff, aber jetzt wissen sie genau, was zu tun ist. Das heißt, ich würde sofort nochmal reinsteigen, aber wir wissen, bei jedem Start treten nochmal diese Probleme auf, wenn auch nicht in dem Umfang wie damals im Jahre 2003, aber Kacheln werden nach wie vor beschädigt. Auch bei meiner Mission gab es 25 Kacheln, die beschädigt wurden. Wir wissen das. Auch heute noch ist das der Fall. Allerdings die Beschädigung so gering, dass man damit leben kann.
Vor 3 Jahren hat der damalige Manager des Shuttle-Programms Wayne Hale gesagt, der Space Shuttle ist nicht wirklich ein sicheres Fahrzeug, es ist ein Experimentierfahrzeug. Das ist eine Offenbarung, oder?
Ich würde es mal anders ausdrücken. In der Versicherungswirtschaft gilt der Raumfahrt als Ultra-Hazardous Adventure. Das heißt, es gibt nichts Komplizierteres, nichts Gefährlicheres als die Raumfahrt. Und daran wird sich nichts ändern. Und weil es so gefährlich und schwierig ist, wird es immer gefahrvoll sein. Es wird immer eine größere Gefahr sein, mit einem Shuttle, wie wir es jetzt gerade im Fernsehen sehen, in den Weltraum zu fliegen, und es kann explodieren, als mit einem Auto nach Hamburg zu fahren.
US-Präsident Obama hat ja letztes Jahr das Shuttle-Nachfolgeprogramm Constellation ersatzlos gestrichen, weil es zu teuer ist. Hat er damit auch das Ende der staatlich bemannten Raumfahrt in den USA besiegelt? Was meinen Sie?
Also er hat Constellation gestrichen, obwohl er jetzt sagt, nein, wir brauchen einen sogenannten Heavy Lift Launcher, also eine Rakete, die damals wie die Saturn-Rakete große Lasten in den Weltraum bringen kann. Dazu hat er sich committed, also er sagt, das bauen wir jetzt. Er hat auch gesagt, wir bauen eine Kapsel für die Astronauten, auch die wird gebaut, obwohl das Manko ist jetzt, er sagt nicht, wie die Kapsel, auf welchem Träger die in den Weltraum kommt, denn auf einen Schwerlastträger kann es nicht sein, weil die so unsicher ist. Also das ganze Programm stimmt nicht. Es ist nicht stimmig, und das ist das große Manko. Mit anderen Worten, mindestens innerhalb der nächsten 5 oder 6 Jahren wird es keinen bemannten Zugang der Amerikaner in den Weltraum geben. Und das führt die große Weltraumnation.
Und das heißt jetzt also, die Amerikaner müssen quasi per Anhalter zur ISS, also quasi im Soyuz-Taxi der Russen.
Schlimmer noch, sie müssen beim Konkurrenten, beim schlimmsten Konkurrenten bei den Russen einsteigen und denen noch Geld dafür zahlen. Das tut ihnen richtig weh.
Das glaube ich.
Immerhin dürfen sie aber mitfliegen, bei den Chinesen dürfen sie nicht mitfliegen.
Wir haben es hier im Studio schon mal besprochen, und zwar über die technische Ausstattung der Soyuz-Kapseln. Sind das die besseren Raumfähren?
Nein, das ist nicht der Fall. Sie sind sicherer, weil sie schon seit den 60er Jahren gebaut werden. Das heißt, die haben überhaupt keine Kinderkrankheiten mehr. Nicht, wenn sie ein neues System bauen, wie damals der Shuttle, hat natürlich Kinderkrankheiten. Und das hat 10 Jahre gebraucht, teilweise 15, bis diese Kinderkrankheiten draus waren. Soyuz hat keine Kinderkrankheiten. Da setzt man sich rein, das Ding funktioniert. Punkt aus. Aber ich möchte nicht mit so einem Ding landen, denn wenn Sie mit so einem Ding landen, schlagen Sie auf den Boden auf. Sie können sich die Wirbelsäule kaputt machen. Ich kenne Kollegen, die haben sich die Wirbelsäule damit kaputt gemacht, und das ist ein Problem. Das heißt, Kapseln sind zwar sicherer, aber nicht unbedingt besser.
Herr Walter, wir haben jetzt gerade das Control Center Live-Bild hier und vielleicht können Sie uns erklären, was da jetzt genau vor sich geht, was da jetzt kommuniziert wird. Wann besteht zum Beispiel eine Funkverbindung?
Ja, wir werden die Funkverbindung in ziemlich genau 2 Minuten wiederbekommen. Dann kommen wir aus dem sogenannten Blackout heraus. Blackout bedeutet, wir haben wegen dieser Hitze keine Kommunikationsverbindung. Also wie gesagt, in 2 Minuten wissen wir, ob diese Discovery den Wiedereintritt überlebt hat, denn damals im Jahre 2003 ist genau an der Stelle, dass die Columbia verglüht. Also in 2 Minuten werden wir es wissen. Was wir jetzt auf dem Bildschirm sehen, das war Florida und dieser grüne Strich, den wir da gesehen haben, das ist der Anflugpfad der Discovery hin nach Kennedy Space Center. Das erwarten wir, so wird also Discovery dann dort landen. So, und hier sehen wir den Kontrollraum. Hier sehen wir es nochmal, also dieser grüne Weg, so wird das Shuttle dann bis zur Kennedy Space Center fliegen. Der Kontrollraum, die sind natürlich jetzt sehr gespannt, die warten auf diese Funkverbindung aus diesem Blackout heraus und es müsste jetzt noch ziemlich genau 1,5 Minuten dauern, bis wir den ersten Ton hören. Es ist jetzt in diesem Control Center absolute Stille, kein Menschen sagt ein Wort, weil nämlich jeder auf diesen Moment wartet, bis sie das erste Wort von der Discovery hören.
Ich habe da so einen netten Satz in meinem Buch gefunden, Landeanflug, während des Landeanflugs verlierst du 3 Kilometer Höhe pro Minute. Das ist 20 Mal mehr als bei der Landung eines normalen Flugzeuges. Ja, das fand ich eigentlich ganz witzig. Das muss ja ganz schön anstrengend sein für die Crew, wobei ja nur die beiden Piloten wirklich etwas sehen. Die anderen sitzen ja einen Stock tiefer.
So, das ist auch richtig. Und der Commander, die Pilot, die haben immer auch gesagt, das Ding fliegt eher wie ein Stein als wie ein Segelflugzeug. Also Sie haben recht, das geht runter wie ein Stein.
Ist man denn völlig groggy? Ich weiß von Kollegen, dass sie völlig schwach dann richtig gebeutelt ankommen, nicht wegen dieses kitzligen Landeanflugs, sondern wegen der Schwerelosigkeit, die ja eigentlich da oben himmlisch ist. Ich habe sie auch schon erleben dürfen, aber wenn man sie dann lange Zeit erlebt, dann bauen die Muskeln rasend schnell ab und man wird ja dann schwach in den Beinen.
Ja, genau so ist es. Also man gewöhnt sich sehr schön und sehr schnell an die Schwerelosigkeit und man muss sich länger zurückgewöhnen an die Schwere als an die Schwerelosigkeit. Und dazu kommt, man sitzt ja in diesen Launch and Entry Suit, die sind ja wirklich absolut dicht. Das heißt, der Schweiß, die Hitze staut sich in diesem Anzug, sie schwitzen darunter, man kann sich sehr schwer konzentrieren und man ist dann wirklich froh, wenn man aus dem Shuttle aussteigen kann und den Anzug ausziehen kann.
Ja, der Anzug ist übrigens rot, habe ich gelesen, nicht? Aus Sicherheitsgründen, damit man, falls etwas schief geht, die Kollegen dann...
So ist es. Es gibt nämlich die Möglichkeit, so sagt die NASA, dass man einen Notausstieg macht. Das heißt, wenn der Shuttle nicht mehr landen kann, aus welchen Gründen auch immer, muss man mit einem Fallschirm ins Wasser runterfliegen und dann schwimmt man im Wasser und dieser rote Anzug lässt einen natürlich schön in diesem Ozean schön sehen.
Discovery is now within range of the Merritt Island tracking station there near Kennedy Space Center.
So, also der amerikanische Kommentator sagte, dass er jetzt das Shuttle in die Nähe kommt.
The flight dynamics officer has confirmed that Discovery is on the proper energy.
Our go. We see you touching down at 2100 at 195 using close-in nom. You'll have a 15% speed brake at 3K, 9% at 5K adjust off runway 15.
Okay, was hier besprochen wurde, ist das sogenannte Terminal Energy Management, das heißt, hier wird besprochen, wie der Shuttle jetzt ganz konkret die letzte Schleife dreht, um dann auf dem Landeplatz in Kennedy Space Center zu landen.
Merkt man eigentlich während des letzten Landeanflugs, falls man Schleifen fliegen muss, merkt man das, wenn man einen Stock tiefer da drin sitzt?
Die Schleife merkt man eigentlich nicht so sehr, weil es eine recht große Schleife ist. Was dann doch beeindruckend ist, sie kommen ja aus der Schwerelosigkeit 0G und die maximale Beschleunigung ist 1,5 G. Und diese 1,5 kommen einem vor.
Discovery, we are now picking you up on S-band. Your energy ground track and nav are go. Off a close-in nom aim point, you'll be touching down 2,100 feet at 195. 3K speed brake, 15% with a 9% adjust. Winds are currently 18, peak 28 on the head.
Okay, hier wurde jetzt gesagt, dass der Wind ausreichend ist. Die Grenze ist bei 25 Knoten pro Sekunde. Das heißt, der Wind ist okay, es wird keine Probleme auftreten. Das heißt, der Shuttle kann gut landen. Und jetzt wurde nochmal besprochen, wie der Shuttle jetzt eben auf diese letzte Schleife zum Anflug fliegen wird.
Die Landung, man kann es nicht oft genug sagen, ist auch immer ein ganz schwieriger Moment. Momentan also sind die Bedingungen, so wie es aussieht, ganz gut. Aber was genau kann jetzt noch schiefgehen?
Ja, der Loch hat es gerade schon richtig gesagt. Der Shuttle hat keinen Antrieb, um zu sagen, oh nein, nein, wir sind nicht ganz richtig, wir starten jetzt nochmal durch, drehen eine Runde und landen nochmal. Das kann der Shuttle nicht. Es muss auf dem Punkt genau landen, es hat keine zweite Chance, es muss landen können. Und wenn es daneben fliegt, dann ist es aus. Und das ist die Schwierigkeit.
Und es darf ja auch kein Tier auf der Piste sein, nicht? Denn es geht ja immer eine Ground Crew, eine Bodencrew, die 4 bis 5 Kilometer lange Piste ab und guckt, ob da sich nicht noch ein Krokodil sonnt.
Ja, so ist es, das stimmt. Und wenn da ein Krokodil wäre, der hätte einfach Pech gehabt.
Naja, das Pech gehabt, vielleicht die Crew aber auch.
Ja, naja, gut, also man könnte das Shuttle dann noch mal ein bisschen kurz hochziehen, um das Krokodil vielleicht drüber zu gehen. Aber Sie haben recht, gut wäre es nicht.
Und Vogelschlag könnte auch drohen, denn es gibt ja da unglaublich viele Vögel, auch Geier, Adler und andere große Tiere.
Ja, man umgeht das damit, man macht Kanonenschüsse. Das heißt, diese Böllerschüsse verscheuchen dann diese Tiere, sodass sie einfach wegfliegen. So, wir sehen jetzt, wie diese roten Punkte näher kommen. Das ist das Shuttle. Das heißt, wir berühren jetzt gerade Florida, das Land, und fliegen jetzt über Florida drüber.
Und dann sind wir wieder beim Knall. Es gibt ja noch mal, glaube ich, zweimal den Überschallknall, wenn die Discovery langsamer wird.
Ja, das ist ein interessantes Phänomen. Es gibt einen doppelten Überschallknall, und zwar einmal von der Spitze vorne vom Shuttle, das gibt den ersten, und dann von den Flügelvorderkanten. Das geht dann so, Knall, tatak, ganz schnell hintereinander, und das ist ein sehr berühmter Effekt, ja.
Man musste viel trinken. War das bei Ihnen auch so, dass man 1,5 Stunden vor dem Landemanöver, vor dem Anflugsmanöver viel trinken musste, damit man den Kreislauf stabil hält?
Ja, man muss zuerst viel Salz essen. Es gibt Salztabletten, die muss man nehmen. Der Hintergrund ist folgender. Durch die Schwere wird die Flüssigkeit nach unten getrieben, würde in den Beinen versacken. Um das zu verhindern, schluckt man sehr viel Salz und trinkt danach sehr viel Wasser. Damit werden die Zellen aufgeschwemmt mit Wasser, und man behält eigentlich den Flüssigkeitsdruck in den Zellen. Damit wird man nicht ohnmächtig.
Aber es passiert trotzdem, dass manchen ganz schummrig wird, oder?
Ja, insbesondere.
Je länger sie in der Schwere. Genau.
Das heißt, wenn man dann aus dem Sitz aufsteht, dann versackt dann doch Flüssigkeit, und auch der Blutdruck versackt, sodass das einem schon schwummerig wird. Ja.
Kann man denn überhaupt gleich aufstehen, oder was passiert in den Minuten, die es dauert, bis man das Raumschiff verlassen kann?
Ja, das dauert ein bisschen länger. Das werden wir wahrscheinlich nicht sehen. Es dauert ungefähr eine halbe bis dreiviertel Stunde, bis die Astronauten das Shuttle verlassen. Der Grund liegt darin, das Shuttle hat sogenanntes Treibstoff Hydrazin, und der ist giftig. Das heißt, bevor die Astronauten aussteigen, kommt so ein Schnüffelfahrzeug, was genau rumschnüffelt, gibt es da irgendwo noch Hydrazin. Und erst wenn da das Go kommt, dann erst können die Astronauten aussteigen.
Die Astronauten hoffen natürlich auch, die europäischen Astronauten, ihre Kollegen hoffen natürlich auch, dass die ESA jetzt sich vielleicht überlegt, ihre Ariane 5 in Französisch-Guyana, hier sehen wir das Space Shuttle, wie es hereinkommt, so auszurüsten, dass auch die Ariane 5 in der Lage wäre, nicht nur Versorgungsgüter zur Raumstation zu bringen, sondern auch Astronauten.
Ja, das wäre sehr schön, allein die Ariane 5 Man-Qualified zu machen. Das heißt also, dass wirklich bemannte Flüge damit fahren, wäre ein riesiger Aufwand. Ich glaube nicht, dass die das machen wird.
Aber wir hoffen.
Wir hoffen das alles. Und jetzt sehen wir ein wunderschönes Bild des Shuttles. Es ist übrigens immer noch weit überschallschnell, also es fliegt weit mit Überschallgeschwindigkeit, das kann man hier nicht sehen, aber es sieht einfach wunderschön aus. Wir sehen, es hat keinen Antrieb, es fliegt wirklich wie ein gleitender, naja, Segelflugzeug ist falsch, eher wie ein Stein, aber es segelt einfach wunderschön, sieht wunderschön aus.
Die Piloten sehen im Augenblick in diesem Winkel noch nicht viel von der Landebahn oder von ihrem Ziel.
Nein, im Augenblick noch nicht, aber in diesen Minuten übernimmt der Commander jetzt die Steuerung. Also bis hierher hat der Autopilot das Shuttle gesteuert, und in den letzten 5 Minuten, also ab jetzt, müsste jetzt der Commander fliegen. Übrigens nicht der Pilot fliegt das Shuttle zur Landebahn, sondern der Commander.
Chefsache.
Der Pilot sitzt hier daneben und schaut zu.
Um mich mal wieder ein bisschen in die Expertendiskussion einzuklinken, Herr Walter, mich würde mal so interessieren, wie bereitet man sich auf diese nervliche Belastung vor, die jetzt in diesem Moment auf den Astronauten lastet? Kann man sich da überhaupt darauf vorbereiten?
Ja, das wird gemacht, und zwar wird bis zum Start des Shuttles täglich dieser Anflug geübt. Es gibt einen eigenen Flieger, eine Grumman, die umgerüstet wird, die genau sich so fliegend verhält wie ein Shuttle. Und täglich setzt sich der Commander rein, also jeden Tag vor dem Start, hat und fliegt diese Anflüge, sodass er dann wirklich an diesem Punkt jetzt genau weiß, was er zu tun hat. Das ist eine Übungsfrage.
Ja, es ist auch interessant. Ich habe mal mit dem Testpiloten vom A308 gesprochen, des Airbus, und da habe ihn gefragt, was das Schönste sei bei diesem Flugzeug, was ja viel größer ist. Und da sagte er, ja, das Schönste ist nicht der Start, sondern die Landung. Und ich denke mal, der Crew und einem Kommandanten eines Space Shuttles wird es ähnlich gehen.
Ja, das stimmt. Das liegt einfach daran, weil hier sehen wir übrigens den Blick jetzt Richtung Landebahn, und zwar durch die Wolken. Viel kann man noch nicht sehen, also die Landebahn kommt jetzt so langsam ins Blickfeld, und wir werden gleich sehen, wie der Shuttle dann eine Kurve fliegt, diese berühmte Drehkurve um ungefähr 180 Grad, um dann auf die Landebahn zuzugehen.
Also ein Fluglotse hilft dem Piloten jetzt auch nicht viel. Er muss sich schon auf sein Können verlassen.
Das muss er alles jetzt selber machen, und dafür werden die auch ausgebildet. Für den Commander ist es deswegen am schönsten, weil, das weiß die Öffentlichkeit kaum, der Start eigentlich vollautomatisch ist, da kann der Commander nicht eingreifen, das machen alles die Rechner. Und auch der Wiedereintritt ist ja zum großen Teil alles automatisch. Nur diese letzten paar 5 Minuten, das darf der Commander selber fliegen. Da freut er sich natürlich immer drauf.
Was mich mal interessieren würde, er hat sicherlich Asbesthandschuhe an, oder fliegt er das mit blanken Hautkontakt zum Ruder?
Nein, er ist in diesem LAS-Suit, und da gibt es eigene Handschuhe. Er hat also Handschuhe an, und die sind eigentlich nicht so schön, aber er muss es machen, denn es könnte ja sein, dass beim Wiedereintritt irgendwas passiert, dass ein Riss in der Kapsel entsteht, und dann würde Unterdruck entstehen, und dieser Raumanzug schützt davor, er erzeugt einen eigenen Druck, in dem er überleben kann, und deswegen ist er lebenswichtig.
Wie einschneidend ist eigentlich so ein Flug ins Weltall? Hinterlässt das dann Spuren, die irgendwie auch viele Jahrzehnte später noch nachwirken, Herr Walter?
Das kann ich Ihnen sagen, da müssten Sie wirklich mal selber fliegen.
Charlie Bold in here as well. We just heard the twin sonic boom. Discovery's pretty much overhead, Suzanne. Coming in for the last time.
Let's listen in, John, if we would, to NASA. They stopped speaking for a moment. I want to go to you, Clay. You know what it's like to be aboard that shuttle right now. What's going on through their heads, through their hearts as they prepare to land?
Well, they're all very focused right now. You know, Steve is getting ready to land the shuttle, and we're counting on him. You know, the shuttle has no capability to do a go-around, so it's a one-shot deal, and he's very focused on what he's doing. He's looking at all his data to make sure that he brings her down as smoothly as possible.
What does it feel like, that moment when you're actually landing?
Discovery crossing out over the Atlantic.
It's kind of surreal. You kind of let out a sigh of relief because you're safely home and back on the ground, but then kind of immediately once you roll out to the end of the runway, you're back in the checklist. You take a second to talk to the Mission Control Center and congratulate one another, but then you're right back in the books making sure that you shut down the orbiter appropriately so that you can begin your exit as quickly as possible.
What do you go through physically when you're landing in that position?
I can only speak for myself. At this point, I was feeling pretty warm. It gets kind of hot in the cabin, and as you move your head within your helmet, if you do it too quickly, you can get a big sense of spinning going on in your brain, and that's kind of an uncomfortable feeling, and it's likened to when you have motion sickness. So you have to be very careful. You have to move very steadily and very slowly to keep your wits about you.
And Clay, we're being told it's just 2 minutes to landing there. Can you give us a sense of what is the most critical aspect of this in order to have a successful landing?
20 times higher, and the glide slope is 7 times steeper.
Well, Steve's going to guide the orbiter by flying it through the stick, but I think Eric Bowe has a very critical job. He's going to have to bring down the landing gear for Steve, and of course we assume that the landing gear is going to come down normally, but the crew is ready to follow the steps that they would need to do to bring it down in an alternate fashion if they needed to, but I think it's going to be just fine.
Heads-up display will allow.
Clay, I want to just listen in, if we could, to hear NASA at the controls to find out what they're saying about this landing that is happening as we watch.
Discovery speed 370 miles an hour. This is Space Shuttle Discovery's final minutes of flight.
Looks like we lost the live pictures there of the final minutes of its landing.
Räder, dem Boden berühren, in dem Augenblick wird der Bremsfallschirm erst ausgehen. Das werden wir alles gleich sehen. So, der Gleitpfad wird jetzt verringert von 20 Grad auf ungefähr 1,5 Grad. Sie sehen das, jetzt kommen die Fahrwerke raus. Wichtig ist, die Fahrwerke haben eine ganz wichtige Funktion, nämlich Luftwiderstand. Das heißt, der Shuttle bremst dadurch mehr ab. So,
nur noch 10 Sekunden vor der Landung, genau.
So, jetzt sind wir fast da.
Immer noch ziemlich schnell.
Ja, 250 Kilometer pro Stunde. Das ist eine ziemliche Geschwindigkeit. So, und jetzt haben wir Touchdown. So, und jetzt ist die Nase noch oben, ganz wichtig, er muss die Nase oben halten, damit der Luftwiderstand groß wird. Und jetzt kommt schon der Bremsfallschirm, wir haben es gesehen, jetzt kann er vorne die Nase runternehmen und jetzt wird der Shuttle maximal abgebremst. Jetzt braucht es ungefähr noch 30 Sekunden, bis der Shuttle zum Stehen kommt. Und erst in dem Augenblick, wo der Shuttle steht, ist offiziell die Mission vorbei.
Gut, also noch dürfen wir nicht aufatmen, doch vorsichtig schon, oder?
Nicht formal, innerlich schon, ja.
Punktlandung in Cape Canaveral.
Ganz genau, 17:57 Uhr, jetzt 58, genau so wie geplant.
Mhm. Eine wunderschöne Landung, wie es sein muss, aus dem Bilderbuch.
Clay, we have just seen the final landing. Let's take a listen.
Discovery Houston, Pinto, great job by you and your crew. That was a great landing in tough conditions, and it was an awesome docked mission that you all had. You were able to take Discovery up to a full 365 days of actual time on orbit. I think that you'd call that a fleet leader and a leader of any manned vehicle for time in orbit. So, job well done. We'll meet you in the post-landing tab. For post-landing, currently no deltas.
And copy that. Scorch, we're headed to 5-3, and I'd like to thank you and your team and all the orbit teams for a fantastic mission, as well as the Expedition 26 team on orbit. And I'd also like to thank KSC, who has given us a perfect vehicle from start to finish on her final flight.
Well said on all, and we totally agree. Thanks, Pinto.
Discovery's final landing, a job well done, is what the crew was just told. Clay Anderson, you saw the landing there. It's an end of an era for Discovery. What does that mean to you?
Well, it's a bittersweet moment. I spent 17 days of my life on board Discovery, and you know, it's a wonderful experience. She's been a workhorse of the fleet. The folks that have put her together and gotten her ready have just done an outstanding job, and it's just a testament to the team of people and wonderful folks that work on the space program that she's been able to do 39 missions and 1.5 million miles and 365 days in space. It's just an awesome achievement.
And John Zarrella there on the ground, if you can hear us, what is the reaction from your vantage point?
You know, people were just standing and cheering, and I couldn't see it, but I can guarantee you there were some tears being shed from a lot of the workforce here. And you know, Suzanne, a year from now, it's going to take about 9 months for them to ready the vehicle, but a year from now, Discovery is very likely going to be in Washington, D.C., up at the Smithsonian, and millions of people forevermore are going to have an opportunity to get right up close and see, you know, a vehicle that one astronaut told me, in fact, it was Alvin Drew, who's flying on this mission right now, said to me, you know, we never in our lifetime again will likely see a vehicle like this, a lifting body that flies up, returns to Earth, and it'll probably be something out of science fiction. People will say, they never built that. It never really happened. That's the kind of amazing technological achievement the shuttle fleet has been.
And Clay, this has been really described as a very emotional moment for many people, such as yourself, the astronauts who are part of this program. Indeed, some people have described it as a family member, a child. Do you get emotional when you know that this is the end of the era for Discovery? Absolutely. We've invested a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of effort into Discovery as part of our space program, and there's a huge legacy that she leaves behind, and I think that what people should take away from this is the pride that we all should share in doing a job well done. I mean, it takes a lot of talent, a lot of money, a lot of effort, a lot of folks working together to pull something off like this.
And Clay, there's a new priority now with President Obama to look beyond the orbit and perhaps to Mars. Is it a bittersweet moment for you to give up this the shuttle program? There are two others, but specifically for Discovery?
Well, change is hard, and it's hard for anyone. So the ability to move on, it would be nice if in a perfect world, if we already had a program set up that people could immediately turn their attention to working on the next challenge for NASA, but we're not there yet. It'll take a little bit of time. So people should, though, take the time to enjoy Discovery, to reminisce about Discovery, but then when the time is right, we're going to turn and focus on doing the next challenge for NASA.
And John, let's turn to you, because I know the next challenge is going to be Endeavour. We're actually going to see that launch. Give us a sense of what is next.
Yeah, Endeavour will fly right now, scheduled for April 19th. The rollout to the launch pad in the next day or so from here at the Kennedy Space Center. And then Atlantis will fly at the end of June 28th right now is the scheduled date. That would be the last flight in the shuttle program. And Suzanne, I can tell you, if you have an opportunity to come down here for one of the last launches, it is, as Clay said, time to reminisce, a piece of history. We're never going to see anything like this again. And I know they're saying 500,000 people for the launch of Endeavour in April and 1 million people this summer. It'll be a lot of humanity to fight through, but well worth it to come and see one of these vehicles lift off from the Kennedy Space Center. And ultimately, Endeavour may end up right here at the Space Center. I know they're vying for it. Atlantis, which flew a lot of military missions, may go to Dayton, Ohio, to the Air and Space Museum there. It's going to cost $28.8 million for whoever gets these other two vehicles. A lot of money, but there are museums all over the country that would like to house one of these vehicles, no question about it.
And Clay, if I could go back to you, what are the astronauts doing now once they've landed? What kind of process are they undergoing right now?
19 hours, 4 minutes.
Well, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to take off their gloves and their helmets and try to get as comfortable as possible. They're going to be stuck in there for a little while. They're working through their checklist to shut down all the critical systems, especially the engines that have their fuel, that's toxic stuff, so that the crew on the outside of the shuttle can come and begin to do their preparations so that the crew can come out. I remember that we were working very feverishly, working hard, but we were very excited to be back on the ground. We were very excited to have had a successful mission, but we had to keep our focus to make sure that we went step by step methodically through the checklist, because the quicker you do it, the quicker you can get out of the vehicle and get cooled off and recover and get something to drink and something to eat and that sort of thing. So they're very focused, they're very methodical right now.
All right, Clay, I want you to stand by, as well as John Zarrella. I want to give our viewers
all right, you have been watching a bit of history here on CNN as the Space Shuttle Discovery makes its final safe landing to Earth after 39 missions, 27 years in space, circling the globe in the skies above us. We will have more on this historic landing later on Prism. Welcome, everyone. I'm Errol Barnett.
Schwerelosigkeit funktioniert. Und Witzbolde haben schon gesagt, der liegt im Moment ja noch in der Box, der wird erst ausgepackt in den nächsten Wochen. Aber Witzbolde haben schon gesagt, wahrscheinlich hört man demnächst Klopfzeichen aus der Box, dass der Roboter schon etwas eher rauskommen möchte. Das hat man alles hier sehr genau natürlich verfolgt und auch weiter gesponnen. Da geht die Fantasie natürlich auch schon mit vielen durch, was die Roboterbesatzung angeht. Und zunächst einmal aber hat man sich damit begnügt, dass William Shatner, der Captain Kirk der Star Trek-Serie, die Discovery-Mannschaft persönlich geweckt hat mit einem besonderen Tribut und mit dem Titelsong von Star Trek. Also man träumt immer noch weiter davon, weit in den Weltraum vorzustoßen. Und diesen Traum lassen sich die Amerikaner, glaube ich, auf absehbare Zeit nicht ganz nehmen.
Stefan Strote, für den Moment Dankeschön nach Washington, und wir wollen auch noch ein bisschen weiter träumen und fantasieren. Nochmal vielleicht mit Professor Ulrich Walter. Herr Walter, wir haben schon ein bisschen spekuliert über die Zukunft der Raumfahrt. Wie sieht die aus, Ihrer Meinung nach?
Ja, also wenn man von der NASA-Raumfahrt redet, da sieht es im Augenblick nicht so gut aus. Das heißt, man darf nicht vergessen, es gibt natürlich auch den großen Bereich der unbemannten Raumfahrt, der wird weitergehen. Die bemannte Raumfahrt wird in den nächsten 5, 6 Jahren ziemlich ruhig werden. Sie werden bei den Russen mitfliegen, das tut ihnen sehr weh. Ich glaube, dann wird erst die Öffentlichkeit zum ersten Mal richtig aufwachen und sagen, hey Mann, wir haben keinen Zugang mehr zum Weltraum, wir müssen jetzt dringend was tun. Aber sie können nicht von 0 auf 100 innerhalb von 1, 2 Jahren, das wird 5, 6 Jahre brauchen. Das wird ihnen sehr weh tun. Die bemannte Raumfahrt generell weltweit wird ihren Weg gehen. Es gibt die internationale Raumstation. Wir werden regelmäßig mit der Sojus-Rakete dorthin fliegen. Es gibt ja auch die unbemannten Versorgungsflüge von den Russen mit der Progress. Wir haben jetzt unseren eigenen ATV, der bringt auch Treibstoff und Nahrungsmittel dort hoch. Und es gibt den japanischen HTV, ist auch ein Versorgungsflugzeug. Also die Raumstation ist gut versorgt, da brauchen wir uns keine Gedanken machen. Wir haben nur die Sojus-Rakete, um bemannt dorthin zu kommen.
Professor Ulrich Walter, Astronaut, war das. Vielen Dank, dass Sie die Landung mit der Discovery mit uns hier im Studio begleitet haben. Und auch vielen Dank an unseren Luft- und Raumfahrtexperten Mick Locher hier im Studio. Wie gesagt, die Discovery ist punktgenau gelandet. Und damit geht auch eine 30-jährige Ära der Raumfahrt zu Ende. Wir machen jetzt aber erstmal weiter mit diesen Nachrichten.
I think I'm happy with taking, figuring the right screen.
Looks like the attitude you're in up until the maneuver to Deorbit Burn might give us a little ratty calm, so expect that. And we have pulled the room, and you will be go for the Deorbit Burn. I hate to bring you back down so early after extending 2 days. I know you're trying to beat Jerry Ross's time on orbit, but it's looking pretty good for this one.
We copy all of that. Go for the Deorbit Burn. I don't know if we have much cryo to stay up too much longer.
Looks right. Short a tank.
Right.
This is good. See, we're ready. We're ready. Thanks.
Flight GNC, we are in a good config for the burn.
A good config for the burn.
All right, Capcom, we see him in a good
Discovery, we see in a good config for your Deorbit Burn, about 20 seconds from a Tetris handover.
Flight proper burning. Both engines are performing nominally.
Good control.
copy. Thank you.
Good. Flight guidance. Good burn. No trim required.
All right.
Discovery, we saw a good Deorbit Burn. We'll meet you in the post-burn tab of the entry checklist.
3-32, folks.
Copy that.
Forward RCS dump will be 18.18 seconds.
Okay.
4 jets.
1-8, 4 jets.
See. No secondary actuator check today. High fluid thermal conditioning will not be required. And the 4-jet dump for the Ford will be 1/8, 18 seconds. Everything else is as published.
Copy. No secondary check required. Secondary actuator. No gimbal check. And copy. 18 seconds forward.
Sorry, secondary actuator check. High fluid thermal conditioning not required. We will take the power down as written. Good words.
Copy all.
And April, like you said, hybrid folks, go ahead and put away the entry pocket and get out your AST and the glide pages.
According to the 1 hour balloon, with close-in aim point, we're now touching down 2100 at 195. Ground speed is 182, and board still 15% at 3K. But it's an honest 15.
Close in now, touching down at 2100, 195. Ground speed 182, 15%. Heading back to 174.
Firm flight.
That's why we lost you there for a moment. So the next one will be normal at mile.
Okay, copy that. Diametrically, block 29 is complete.
When did that happen?
A while ago.
All right, good deal. Thanks. Speed brake 15% with a 9% adjust. Winds are currently 18, peak 28 on the head.
Take TACAN, take GPS. And copy all.
You can take TACANs and GPS.
And so just confirm, you did say nominal shoot, right?
Yes.
My fingers.
We haven't gotten that far yet, but we will be nominal shoot then.
Copy.
Yeah, on CN Fido, you did copy the changes in the winds, correct?
Yes, sir. We're taking a look at it.
Okay.
NCC Houston flight on command net.
Ecom, you saw a good 12K steps.
That's firm flight.
All right, that's good cooling. Good TACAN.
Half minutes from now.
GPS and TACAN both look good. Flight.
Next week, 26 patches and catch on.
Probes are on flight. We are evaluating. Okay.
Weather hasn't officially amended a forecast, but with the 18 peak 28 winds, we'd be touching down 2200, 195 with ground speed of 180.
Okay. Still close in now, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, still good touchdown conditions, copy.
Taking your data.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and get this out early. Steve messed us up asking about the drag chute, but we'll still do our standard things we practice. Let's see, Fidos. Any updates for the Windsor weathers from what we just had?
Give me 1 sec here, Clay.
Okay. CTNC, any advisories? No advisories, got a good repo. And Max.
Normal shoot toys, any weather.
Okay. All right, so where we're at, Max, we got all headwind here, so it'll just be nominal shoot.
Start flight.
Bob 305. Copy 305.
Flight Fido. New surface wind breakdown forecast.
Okay.
17 peak 25.
17 peak 25.
Yes, sir.
You got a breakdown on that? Is that straight all the way down?
150 straight.
150?
Headwind.
Okay. Let's see, and is that what your last run was for the 2200, 195, 180?
The last run was actually 18 peak 28.
Okay.
But we'd be touching down somewhere between 2100 and 2200, so it's not much of a difference there.
Alrighty. You copy that?
Discovery, you are on energy approaching the hack. Latest winds now 17 peak 25 out of 150, so it's straight down the runway. We ran the energy numbers with the higher peak wind that we gave you earlier, which was the 18 peak 28, still getting you 2,200 feet down. So we'll call it 2,100 at 195.
Okay, copy that.
And if I didn't mention it, still nominal shoot.
Copy.
CSS all XC's commanders flying. Copy.
Discovery, we see you on at the 180.
On at the 180.
Can you see outside? Can you pan up the whole time?
Commander is flying. Copy.
Discovery, you are on at the 90.
On at the 90.
Processing normalized. Copy.
Flying up at runway 15, northwest to southeast approaching Space Center.
Right now, yeah, scorched under the clouds.
On glide slope, on central line.
We agree you are on, and we have good HUD video.
Copy.
As of display will allow for you to see when these will line up to the runway. You can see two airlines approaching the bottom. 7K. It's got to go right to that cloud. 70 miles an hour. There we go.
Try here.
Space Shuttle Discovery now with final approach to the Kennedy Space Center. 11 seconds to go.
Give
speed being deployed. And note your touchdown. Then we'll make it
Ground speed enabled. All right, folks, post landing Delta. Max, Eagle. None.
None.
GNC. None. Prop.
No Deltas.
CPS. None. CACO. None. Inco. And booster. None. Okay. Need to move around 5-3. See, Jimmy, give me a heads up when you get the S-band antennas, upper and pointing inhibited. And then Econ, you have the opportunity. Are we going to right now say about 30 minutes each system for the ammonia?
That's good. First half point.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll get into rad reconfig in about 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay.
And Houston Discovery for the final time. Wheel stop.
Discovery Houston, Pinto, great job by you and your crew. That was a great landing in tough conditions, and it was an awesome docked mission that you all had. You were able to take Discovery up to a full 365 days of actual time on orbit. I think that you'd call that a fleet leader and a leader of any manned vehicle for time in orbit. So, job well done. We'll meet you in the post-landing task. For post-landing, currently no deltas.
And copy that. Of course, we're headed to 5-3, and I'd like to thank you and your team and all the orbit teams for a fantastic mission, as well as the Expedition 26 team on orbit. And I'd also like to thank KSC, who has given us a perfect vehicle from start to finish on her final flight.
Well said on all, and we totally agree. Thanks, Pinto.
Flight upper is inhibited. All right, copy.
Codes weather flight and weather.
NCC, Houston, Florida. Time by command.
Job well done. What do we see?
GNC, I know I got to get the body flap down.
Yes, pending body flap.
And Inco? Okay.
By Econ.
Econ.
We are good with this time.
Now 28 minutes to touchdown. We are about 1 minute away from the first roll maneuver by Shuttle Discovery. Its angle of attack still 40 degrees. During this first roll maneuver, Discovery's wings will be turned to the right 80 degrees as it begins to bleed off its speed and its energy. 8 minutes later, it will swing back to the left another 80 degrees and continue this back and forth 3 times as Discovery heads toward the Kennedy Space Center. Discovery's altitude now 53 miles. Its range from the Kennedy Space Center 3,900 miles. Its descent rate is 375 feet per second. The Flight Dynamics Officer has updated Flight Director Tony Sikachi on Discovery's final touchdown point on runway 15. Discovery will be wheels down 2,100 feet from the threshold at 224 miles per hour.
We're coming up on that antenna override.
Copy that.
The antenna override that you heard Charlie Hobaugh talking to the crew about is a known procedure that they talked to the crew about before re-entry. There are several different antennas on Discovery that can communicate with the tracking and data relay satellite system. Discovery's onboard computers automatically select which antenna is best, but the team here in Houston is going to automatically command those antennas from here to switch them over to a better reception. Now just 26 minutes to touchdown. Discovery's wings tilted to the right 83 degrees. Discovery's current speed 16,700 miles an hour. That's Mach 24. Its altitude 48 miles. Range to KSC 3,200 miles. This is Mission Control Houston, now 23 minutes to touchdown. Discovery traveling 16,000 miles an hour, Mach 23. Its altitude 46 miles. Range to touchdown 2,640 miles. Discovery's wings still banked over to the right at 74 degrees. The shuttle is dropping at 70 feet per second. Discovery now traveling 15,000 miles an hour. Its altitude 44 miles. Range to touchdown 2,000 miles. Now just 20 minutes away from touchdown. Now 19 minutes to touchdown. Discovery traveling 14,000 miles an hour. Its altitude 42 miles. Range to touchdown 1,600 miles. Discovery has wrapped up that first roll maneuver to the right. It has now swung back to the left with its left wing dipped down 77 degrees.
Lost you there for a moment. Next one will be normal at Milo.
Okay, copy that. I meant to call you. Block 29 is complete.
When did that happen?
Oh, a while ago.
All right, good deal. Thanks.
Less than 18 minutes to go. Discovery now approaching the western edge of Central America, right in between Guatemala and El Salvador. It will make a quick transit across that and then on up to the eastern side of the Yucatan. Discovery speed is now 13,100 miles an hour. Its altitude 40 miles, range 1,300 miles. "16 minutes to landing. Discovery traveling 11,700 miles an hour. Its altitude 38 miles, crossing over Central America at this point. Approaching the Yucatan Peninsula. Discovery and still in a roll reversal to the left. Its wings tilted over 62 degrees right now. The shuttle dropping at 193 feet per second. The reaction control system, roll and pitch jets have been shut down. The flight control surfaces are becoming active. The yaw jets, however, are still in effect. They are still helping Discovery navigate and steer. Once Discovery gets below Mach 3.5, those will be shut down as well. Space Shuttle Discovery speed continued to drop significantly. It's now at 8,200 miles an hour. Its altitude 33 miles. Range to touchdown 553 miles. Discovery still leaning to the left at 55 degrees, continuing to bleed off speed. Discovery is now within range of the Merritt Island tracking station there near Kennedy Space Center. The flight dynamics officer has confirmed that Discovery is on the proper energy.
Our go. We see you touching down at 2100 at 195 using close-in nom. You'll have a 15% speed brake at 3K, 9% at 5K adjust off runway 15. Discovery, we are now picking you up on S-band. Your energy, ground track, and nav are go. Off a close-in main point, you'll be touching down 2,100 feet at 195. 3K speed brake, 15% with a 9% adjust. Winds are currently 18, peak 28 on the head.
And copy all.
You can take TACANs and GPS.
Discovery now receiving information from the tactical air navigation aids that lie along the glide path toward the Kennedy Space Center. There are 3 different redundant TACAN units on board Discovery that receive range and bearing data from 6 of these beacons that are on the ground. These TACAN units on the shuttle will update the guidance and navigation computers on board. Discovery's current speed 4,500 miles an hour, Mach 6. Its altitude 26 miles, range to touchdown 242 miles. 10 more minutes until Discovery touches down there on runway 15. You heard Capcom Charlie Hobaugh updating the crew.
Just confirm, you did say nominal shoot, right?
We haven't gotten that far yet, but we will be nominal shoot, Benno.
Copy.
Discovery will be touching down 2,100 feet down the runway at 224 miles an hour. Discovery now crossing the western edge of the state of Florida, near the city of Sarasota, heading to the northeast. 8 minutes, 46 seconds to touchdown. Discovery traveling 3,300 miles an hour. Its altitude 22 miles, range 153 miles. Discovery's range now 109 miles, its speed 2,476 miles, its altitude 19 miles. A little more than 7.5 minutes to touchdown.
Discovery, you can take air data.
Taking air data.
Our first views of Space Shuttle Discovery as it bears down on the Kennedy Space Center. The 2 air data probes on the left and right side of Discovery's nose have been deployed. They are measuring the speed of the wind around the vehicle and updating the airspeed and rate of descent to the onboard computers. Discovery now 6 minutes, 45 seconds to touchdown. Its speed 1,800 miles an hour. Its altitude 15 miles. Range 72 miles. Discovery now dropping 212 feet per second.
Discovery, you are on energy approaching the hack. Latest winds now 17 peak 25 out of 150, so it's straight down the runway. We ran the energy numbers with the higher peak wind that we gave you earlier, which was the 18 peak 28, still getting you 2,200 feet down. So we'll call it 2,100 at 195.
Okay, copy that.
And if I didn't mention it, still nominal shoot.
Copy.
Capcom Charlie Hoba updating the crew on the winds and the weather. This is a view from the heads-up display looking out pilot Eric Bowe's window. Discovery now 5 minutes from touchdown. It is traveling 850 miles an hour. Its altitude 11 miles. Range to touchdown 35 miles. Discovery continuing to drop 286 feet per second. Its wings are now level. Discovery now traveling 654 miles an hour. About to go subsonic. Its altitude 9 miles, range 27 miles. Four minutes to touchdown. Discovery now approaching the heading alignment circle. This is an imaginary circle created by the microwave landing system. It sits off the end of the runway and is about 7 miles in diameter. Commander Steve Lindsay will take over the flight of the shuttle around this circle, which will set it up for final approach. Sonic booms now heard at the Kennedy Space Center announcing Discovery's arrival. 3.5 minutes to touchdown. Discovery beginning this left-hand turn around this heading alignment circle. This will be a 252-degree left-hand turn. Pilot Eric Bowe has taken over control of the flight at this point. Discovery traveling 500 miles an hour. Its altitude 5 miles.
Discovery, we see you on at the 180.
On at the 180.
Discovery crossing out over the Atlantic, then back over the eastern edge of Florida. Commander Steve Lindsay back in control of Discovery for the remainder of this heading alignment circle. 2 minutes, 30 seconds to touchdown. Discovery traveling 440 miles an hour. Its altitude 4 miles.
Discovery, you are on at the 90.
On at the 90.
Two minutes to touchdown. Discovery traveling 400 miles an hour. Discovery beginning to line up with runway 15. This is the northwest to southeast approach at the Kennedy Space Center. During this point in the flight, the shuttle's descent rate is 20 times higher and the glide slope is 7 times steeper than a commercial airliner. Discovery speed 400 miles an hour, its altitude 2 miles, continuing to line up with the runway there at KSE.
We agree, you are on, and we have good HUD video.
Very good.
The heads-up display will allow Commander Steve Lindsay to line up Discovery's nose with the runway. You will see 2 arrows approach from the bottom. He will continue to lift the nose of the shuttle up. Discovery speed 370 miles an hour. This is Space Shuttle Discovery's final minutes of flight.
Film size.
Copy.
Space Shuttle Discovery now on final approach to the Kennedy Space Center. Just more than 30 seconds to go. Discovery's gear is down and locked. Main gear touchdown. The nose of the shuttle being rotated down toward the flight deck. The parachute being deployed. And nose gear touchdown and the end of a historic journey. And to the ship that has led the way time and time again, we say farewell, Discovery.
And Houston, Discovery for the final time. Wheel stop.
Discovery Houston, Pinto, great job by you and your crew. That was a great landing in tough conditions, and it was an awesome docked mission that you all had. You were able to take Discovery up to a full 365 days of actual time on orbit. I think that you'd call that a fleet leader and a leader of any manned vehicle for time in orbit. So, job well done. We'll meet you in the post-landing tab. For post-landing, currently no deltas.
And copy that, Scorch. We're headed to 5-3, and I'd like to thank you and your team and all the orbit teams for a fantastic mission, as well as the Expedition 26 team on orbit. And I'd also like to thank KSC, who has given us a perfect vehicle from start to finish on her final flight.
Well said on all, and we totally agree. Thanks, Pinto.
This is Mission Control Houston. Once again, Space Shuttle Discovery sitting there on runway 15 at the Kennedy Space Center. Its wheels have stopped after 27 years of historic spaceflight. You heard Charlie Hobaugh, the Capcom, passing up some words of congratulations to Commander Steve Lindsay on a successful 133 mission. This legend has spent 365 days in space, 5,304,140 statute miles flown during this mission alone.
RCS home safing.
Thanks, Pinto. Hey, for you, we need RAD reconfig. It'll be when you get to ammonia, Bravo, Pride GPC. You probably already have that annotated in your book.
Do you need it now, or just letting me know?
No, we'd like it now. It's just rad out temp high and water pump loop 1 to on, and then that'll put you in a good config until we get heated up a little bit.
Okay, got rad out temp and high, water loop 1 is on.
Good deal. When we get VAP out T above 55, we'll take ammonia controller Bravo to Pride GPC.
Copy that, Scorch. Houston, ET and Belco doors are coming open.
We're ready.
Space Shuttle Discovery made it can only be described as a picture-perfect landing at Kennedy Space Center, and it marks the end of a long career for the space program's oldest, most seasoned shuttle. Joining us now is John Zarrella from Cape Canaveral, Florida. You watched the entire thing unfold, John, and I imagine many of the NASA employees watched this with watery eyes.
Yeah, they did, no question about it. They had about 15 busloads of NASA employees come out here to the landing strip area to witness the final landing of the Shuttle Discovery, and it was picture perfect. The skies were absolutely perfectly blue. The winds kicked up a little bit more, and at one point they sent a message up, verbal message up to the commander, Steve Lindsay, and told him just that the peak gusts were a little higher than they had expected. But Discovery came in. You know, it's one shot only. There's no engines. They can't fly back around at this point. It's totally a glider as it comes down on final approach. Steve Byerly there, the voice of at Johnson Space Center at Mission Control, calling it as Discovery landed. It actually went right behind us here at the landing site, and from here passed out of view behind the trees after it touched down here. But just a spectacular end. 39 missions, 148 million miles flown in its history. And again, it flew a couple of significant missions. It flew both return to flight missions after the accidents of the shuttles Challenger and Columbia. It flew Senator John Glenn into space. And there you can hear the end of an historic journey. The commentary by Josh Byerly there out at the Johnson Space Center. Now, the crews are all around the vehicle, and they are safing it, getting ready to prepare it to taxi it back over to the facilities here at Kennedy, where it will be all of the gases, noxious, hazardous gases, will be purged from the vehicle, and it will be ready for its next adventure, which in 9 months to a year, Discovery will be placed up at the Smithsonian for thousands and thousands of people in the future to get an up-close and personal look, so to speak, at Discovery. The other vehicles, too, Aero, will have homes as well. Perhaps one of them will come here to the Kennedy Space Center. Another may be at Dayton, Ohio, at the Air Force Museum. They have 2 more flights to go, though, before they retire. Aero?
Right. A sad year for NASA as it closes a major chapter.
Yep.
Thank you very much. John Zarrella there, the latest for us from Florida. And as we mentioned, the Space Shuttle Discovery landed in picture-perfect weather, but not too far west. Tornadoes have been reported. Mari Ramos is tracking those storms at the World Weather Center. Mari?
Hey, yeah, it was beautiful, that landing, really breathtaking. You know what, the storms, Errol, have been pretty strong there across the southeastern U.S. Florida now included in some of these tornado warnings, but all the way over here across western parts of Florida. The Space Coast is in this area right in here, and you can see this continuing line of storms that continues to move on along. Now, there's 2 tornado warnings, one that includes portions of Pensacola all the way up into Orange Beach, Alabama. So a lot going on here. Earlier today, there was a confirmed tornado in Alabama, another one that actually moved near the airport in New Orleans and into Lake Pontchartrain even. That may have been a tornado as well. So a lot of activity going on and very heavy rain falling across major cities here across the southeast. There have been some flooding problems farther to the north, and that will continue to be a significant problem there to the north, but to the south, dangerous wind gusts and still the isolated possibility of tornadoes.
And we're also expecting that we'll see Bill Gerstenmaier, the Associate Administrator for Space Operations at NASA headquarters, and Bob Cabana, the Director of the Kennedy Space Center, among others. Some of the others to be on the runway include John Shannon, the Shuttle Program Manager from the Johnson Space Center, Rita Wilcoxon, the Director of shuttle processing here at Kennedy. Mike Moses, the manager of launch integration from JSC and stationed here at Kennedy, along with Leroy Kane, the shuttle program deputy manager. Brian Lunny is also here, the lead shuttle flight director. There are the crew transport vehicle now is about to back away from Discovery. Right now we're also taking off some time-critical items from the mid-deck, including some experiments. Try to get those off as soon as possible so that the effect of gravity does not have any effect on any of the data. And other things will be offloaded later in the hangar that Discovery brought back. See, the crew transport vehicle now is moving away from the White Room, which remains adjacent to Discovery. Right now there's some photo documentation going underneath the orbiter as well of Discovery's systems, including the landing gear and brakes, some of the tiles. We have one special detail test objective, a tile called a protuberance tile, is about a ½ an inch long, a special tile under the wing. That's being documented. Discovery is 9,700 feet down runway 15. Right now the crew is getting some brief health checks by the flight surgeon before they disembark from the crew transport vehicle for the walk around, making sure that they all feel well enough to do that. And if not, sometimes some of them don't. The stairs to the crew transport vehicle have now been lowered in preparations for the astronauts to come out. And right now the word is that they'll all be going back in the Astrovan, which is also out at the runway right now. And here comes our crew, led by Commander Steve Lindsay. He's meeting our Center Director, Bob Cabana. And there's Steve Bowen, Alvin Drew, Michael Barrett, and Nicole Stott. And Bill Gerstenmaier also there greeting the crew, our Associate Administrator for Space Operations from headquarters. And there is Charlie Bolden, our NASA Administrator, standing with Kennedy Space Center Director Bob Cabana. Talking with Nicole Stott. John Shannon, the shuttle program manager, with Mike Leinbach, our launch director for STS-133. Mike Leinbach again, greeting our crew. He was the first onto the runway as soon as access was allowed underneath Discovery. John Shannon. Howard DeCastro, the shuttle program manager from the United Space Alliance out there. There is Stephanie Stilson, our Discovery flow manager. Again, we see Stephanie Stilson with Nicole Stott. The weather on the runway right now, virtually perfect as it was for landing. Our commander, Steve Lindsay. It's Eric Bowe, our pilot. And we also saw John Casper, the Shuttle Associate Program Manager, also from the Astronaut Corps. Al Drew. There's John Casper on the left with Al Drew. And that is Steve Bowen. And behind him is Mission Specialist Michael Barrett. Leroy Kane also there, the shuttle program deputy manager from Houston. Some of the crew gradually beginning to make their way toward the orbiter. Now the crew is underneath Space Shuttle Discovery. Here is Mission Specialist Steve Bowen. So there's Sherry Ross from the astronaut office, out looking underneath Discovery. Here's our administrator, Charlie Bolden, with Commander Steve Lindsay. Eric Bowe is meeting our administrator, Charlie Bolden. Of course, Charlie Bolden, a veteran of shuttle flights as well. Just gotten word that Mission Control in Houston has now officially turned over all of the remaining activities to the ground team at Kennedy Space Center. Offloading all of the data from Discovery's flight recorders is now complete. There's Nicole Stott. And the microphone is set up. We expect that the crew will have something to say. And also our NASA Administrator, Charlie Bolden, is going to have some remarks just ahead of the flight crew as well. Our Center Director on the right, Bob Cabana, also who has been an astronaut who has flown on the shuttle. It's a very leisurely walk around under the orbiter. It's a very happy occasion for the crew and for also the team that has been responsible for Discovery, both prior to launch and while it's on the runway, getting ready to go back to the hangar. It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the upper 70s. Alvin Drew. We just saw Bill Gerstenmaier once again. The ground team under the orbit are also continuing to do their inspections and photo documentation. And that was Bill Gerstenmaier. Now we see Alvin Drew again. Mike Moses, Bill Gerstenmaier, and our commander, Steve Lindsay. Mike Moses, who's our manager of launch integration here at Kennedy for the Johnson Space Center. And of course, Bill Gerstenmaier, our associate administrator, both chatting with our commander, Steve Lindsay. Again, the ground team is continuing to remove things from the flight deck, putting them aboard that ground conveyance, that elevated conveyance now we see adjacent to Discovery, which will move closer to Discovery a little bit later on as part of the activity. And there is Charlie Blackwell Thompson from the NASA Tech Director's Office and Launch and Landing Office. Steve Payne, who was our NASA Test Director during the countdown. And Mission Specialist Eric Bowe, actually our pilot. The ground crews have marked out on the runway the spots where the nose gear and the landing gear came to a stop. Where the nose gear came to a stop, there will be a permanent marker on the side of the runway, establishing that as Discovery's final wheel stop activity for the shuttle program. And the crew and our administrator coming to the microphone.
This way. Okay. Okay, facing the cameras. You're going to tell me whether is it on? Is it on? Okay. Well, we're going to make this very brief because the crew's anxious to get out of here and go meet the families and everything, but want to thank everybody for coming out. I especially want to thank Steve and the crew for an absolutely incredible flight. This is the, if my numbers are correct, it's the 39th flight on Discovery. Discovery has a very special place for me and for Bob Cabana over here because we both had an opportunity to fly on it twice, and so this is very bittersweet for all of us. I want to thank all of you for continuing to support the space program the way you have, and I'm just going to turn it over to Steve and let Steve make a couple of comments here. Steve, come on up.
Well, it's great to be back. I am so thankful that we got to land back here at Kennedy Space Center, the home of Discovery. Charlie mentioned 39 flights. We believe, if we did our math right, which we may not have, this is 365 days on orbit for Discovery, an entire year in space. Discovery launched and came back on this flight, just like my previous two flights on Discovery, with absolutely no leans against her, no single system with any problems whatsoever. And if you think about a vehicle that's 26, 27 years old, been flying for that long, to come back perfect, I have never seen an airplane be able to do that. But because of the Kennedy Space Center workforce here that takes care of this vehicle, it came back as perfect on its final flight as it did on its first flight. I'm extremely proud of this crew here. My crew did a fantastic job. The ground teams did a fantastic job. We accomplished every objective we set out to do then, and plus a whole bunch more. But it was these folks on orbit that did it, and I'm extremely proud of them and the job that they did. As Charlie mentioned, it's a pretty bittersweet moment for all of us. It's as the minutes passed, I'm actually getting sadder and sadder about this being the last flight, and I know all the folks involved in the shuttle program feel the same way. But to kind of end this, I would like to thank Bob Cabana and the Kennedy Space Center for giving us just a fantastic vehicle to fly. It was a privilege to be able to be in charge of her for just a couple of weeks, and I'm sad to give her back, but I couldn't imagine giving her back into better hands than this group right here. Thank you all for coming, and have a good day.
And the crew very shortly will board the Astrovan for the 5-mile trip back to the astronaut quarters. I have a brief photo moment here for the entire crew. The astronauts will go back to Houston tomorrow afternoon. There will be a welcoming ceremony for them back at Ellington Field.
David, we gotta go.
Taking a picture here now with some of the landing team on the runway. Crew now boarding the Astrovan. See the convoy command vehicle in the background where a lot of the runway operations are directed. For those who are out on the tarmac. Takes about 15 minutes to go back to the astronaut quarters from the runway. About a 5-mile trip. And there they go.
Ein Arbeitstier geht in den Ruhestand. Das Space Shuttle Discovery ist vor gut einer Stunde nach seinem letzten Flug zur Erde zurückgekehrt. Die 27 Jahre alte Raumfähre setzte in Cape Canaveral planmäßig auf. 39 Mal war die Discovery im All, öfter als alle anderen Shuttles. Sie umrundete die Erde dabei mehr als 5.600 Mal. Künftig wird sie nun in einem Museum in Washington stehen. Das ganze Shuttle-Programm soll im Sommer nach 2 weiteren Flügen der Raumfähren Endeavour und Atlantis eingestellt werden.
Discovery ist am Abend zur Erde zurückgekehrt, zum allerletzten Mal. Mit 6 Astronauten an Bord landete das Shuttle auf dem Weltraumbahnhof Cape Canaveral. Damit geht eine Ära zu Ende, denn das Space Shuttle wird nach 27 Jahren außer Dienst gestellt. 5.600 Mal umrundete die Discovery die Erde. Künftig wird sie nur noch in einem Museum zu betrachten sein.
Landung der Raumfähre Discovery. Nach fast 27 Jahren im Dienst ist das Shuttle vor 2 Stunden auf dem Weltraumbahnhof Cape Canaveral in Florida gelandet. Es war für Wartungs- und Reparaturarbeiten an der internationalen Raumstation ISS. Die Discovery kommt nun ins Museum.
Die US-Raumfähre Discovery ist von ihrem letzten Flug aus dem All zurückgekehrt. Der Shuttle mit 6 Besatzungsmitgliedern an Bord landete planmäßig auf dem Weltraumbahnhof Cape Canaveral in Florida. Die Astronauten hatten Reparaturarbeiten an der internationalen Raumstation ISS vorgenommen. Mit 39 Missionen in 27 Jahren ist die Discovery der älteste Shuttle mit den meisten Flügen. Er soll jetzt in einem Museum seinen Platz finden.
Die US-Raumfähre Discovery hat ihre letzte Mission im All erfolgreich beendet. Sie landete planmäßig auf dem Weltraumbahnhof Cape Canaveral in Florida. Mit 39 Einsätzen war das Shuttle öfter im All als alle anderen. Nach fast 27 Jahren wird es nun zum Museumsstück. Das Shuttle-Programm insgesamt soll im Sommer nach 2 weiteren Flügen der Raumfähren Endeavour und Atlantis komplett eingestellt werden.
Discovery's final chapter.
Main gear touchdown. The nose of the shuttle being rotated down toward the flight deck. The parachute being deployed. And nose gear touchdown and the end of a historic journey. And to the ship that has led the way time and time again, we say farewell, Discovery.
The U.S. space program's oldest and most traveled shuttle has rolled into history. After 39 missions and more than 140 million miles, Discovery came to a stop for good only hours ago at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Welcome back. You're watching Connect the World. I'm Fionnuala Sweeney. All told, Discovery has spent a total of 365 days in space. But for all the significant numbers, it is still truly about the story Discovery ran, secret missions, and carried everything from rats to the Hubble Space Telescope. CNN's John Zarrella has been watching the shuttle history unfold from his vantage point at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
We have main engine start.
The Space Shuttle. For more than 30 years, it has been part of our vocabulary. Soon, it will be part of our history. The winged spacecraft is unmistakable, an engineering marvel. Without it, the International Space Station could not have been built.
When you come to the round handrail, pause for the solar array operation.
The Hubble telescope would not have been repaired more than once. The Air Force used the shuttle for secret missions. We'll never know exactly what. Of course, it's no secret the shuttle program is now coming to an end. Long overdue, some say. Time to move on, build something safer, more reliable, less expensive to fly.
Maybe 5, 10, 15 years from now, there's going to be a nostalgia for the shuttle. Were we ever that audacious to go build spacecraft to do things like that? And I think we're going to look back and it's going to be as if it was something out of a science fiction movie.
As each orbiter returns to Earth from its final flight, it will be readied for retirement. Engines removed, toxic gases purged, cryogenics and pyrotechnics removed. Discovery will be the first shuttle to move on.
And so I somewhat liken it to now we're at a point where we're sending our kid off to college, right? We've taken care of these vehicles, we've loved them, we've put everything we have into them, and now it's time for us to let them go a little bit.
It will take 9 months to make each orbiter ready, in essence, a museum piece. Discovery, the oldest in the fleet, 39 missions under her belt, 142 million miles flown, is headed to the Smithsonian.
I hope they display it so that everybody can see, what it was really like to be inside of it, what it was like to fly it, what it was like to operate it, and more importantly, all the things that it could do.
Where Endeavour and Atlantis end up hasn't been decided. Wherever it is, they will instantly become the centerpiece attractions where people will walk up with their children and grandchildren and say, I remember when shuttles flew.
A tribute to the dedication, hard work, and pride of America.
John Zarrella, CNN, at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
So what happens next to the so-called space race? Well, I'm joined now by NASA consultant and space historian Andrew Chaikin from Arlington, Vermont. Before we get onto that, could the space station have been built without the shuttle?
No, not as it was designed. In fact, it was very much designed as a companion program to the shuttle. The modules that comprise the space station were sized so that they would fit comfortably in the shuttle's cargo bay. And one of the things that we will miss when the shuttle retires is the ability to have a piloted vehicle that can carry up, manipulate, and even bring back large, pieces of machinery or experiment packages like that.
I remember about 10 years ago in the Bush administration, all the talk before 9/11 was about the space race, Star Wars, etc. That obviously disappeared off the agenda. And you smile perhaps nostalgically, I wonder. So where does the space race stand?
Ironically.
Nostalgically
and ironically.
So where do you think the space race stands now?
Well, I think it's, you've heard the expression fighting the last war. I think that any mention of a space race is a mindset that is locked in the past. There's no doubt that we would not have made the strides in space as quickly as we did. We certainly would not have gotten to the moon by the end of the 1960s when we did without the space race, without the competition with the Soviet Union in the Cold War. But, that political imperative was gone almost as soon as the astronauts finished their first moonwalk. So today, we're at a point where we really have to bring the technology along to where space flight can be truly an everyday part of our lives. We need to make access to low Earth orbit as routine and low cost as possible. It will never be truly routine. The shuttle was never truly routine, and it took a phenomenal amount of labor to keep it flying and keep it in repair between flights. What we need now is for some of these ingenious folks in the commercial side to come up with new vehicles that can really meet that challenge of how do you make it a routine thing, a relatively routine thing. And at the same time, we need NASA to be doing the cutting edge stuff that will allow us to go beyond low Earth orbit with people something that we have not done, by the way, since 1972.
And let me ask you then, so what shape is NASA in today? And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it the case that 7,000 jobs are to be lost at the Kennedy Space Center because of the shuttle being put out or being decommissioned?
Yeah, NASA's in a really tough period and has been for some number of years, not only because the shuttle program, the decision was made back in 2004 to retire the shuttle. Actually, they had planned to do it last year. So that obviously was a huge impact, but also the fact that the Constellation program, for various reasons which take too long to go into, was not on a successful track, and so ended up being canceled. And now NASA really is at a crossroads, and I think one of the adjustments that they'll have to make in the next few years is adapting to using commercially built vehicles. Now, all spacecraft are built by commercial companies, but this is a whole new ballgame in the sense of there are companies like SpaceX in California that are literally designing, building, and testing their own rockets, their own capsules, and NASA will become kind of the customer in a way that it never has before. So that's going to be an adjustment, no doubt.
It's fascinating, not least because of the enthusiasm with which you convey what you've been telling us. Sad day for you?
Well, not really. I mean, I think that the shuttle was an incredible engineering achievement, and it's done some absolutely remarkable things. But in some ways, I feel that the shuttle has held us back because we put all of our eggs in the shuttle basket back in 1981 when it began flying, and it ate up so much of NASA's resources to fly the shuttle, and it did not do what it had been advertised to do, which was to lower the cost of getting into space and make spaceflight routine. That is a much, much harder problem than anybody realized. Now, I think we're way overdue to try and solve some of those problems, and as I say, do the cutting-edge technology that will allow us, for the first time in almost 40 years, to venture beyond low Earth orbit and explore the solar system with humans, as well as those amazing robotic missions that we are continuing to have.
All right, so no tears then in Arlington, Vermont tonight. Thank you very much indeed, Andrew Chaikin.
Hello, everyone. This is our post-landing news conference for Space Shuttle Discovery, and we have with us our entire STS-133 flight crew. And we'll turn it over now to Steve Lindsay, our mission commander. Steve?
Hi, well, thanks for coming today. It was a great day to come back and land in Florida. We're happy to bring Discovery home after 365 days on orbit, and so you probably don't want to hear a big, long speech from me, so I think I'll just turn it over to questions.
Please give your name and affiliation when the microphone comes to you. We just have a brief time with the crew, so if you'll just ask one question, and if we do have time, we'll come back around, but just a single question. And we'll start here in the front with Marcia.
Marcia Dunn, Associated Press. Mike Leinbach told us just a little while ago that he didn't notice any big emotional outbursts or tears on the runway. But my question for you is, were there any tears among you? How emotional was it for you to bring Discovery home for the last time and walk away?
You know, it was hard as I thought it would be. It was hard to leave the flight deck when we were all done. At least for me, it was. You know, we were focused today on bringing it home safely. We were really working hard the whole mission, and so we didn't really have a whole lot of time to reflect about that. But I did notice when I was on the ramp, looking around, you know, walking around afterwards, that as the minutes passed, I kind of got more and more sad looking at the vehicle and how healthy it is and how wonderful it performed, and not just in this flight, but you know, the other two flights that I flew on it, as well as every other flight. You know, it kind of got sadder for me, I think, as the minutes rolled past.
Todd?
Todd Halverson of Florida Today for Nicole. You worked on Discovery here at the Kennedy Space Center. During the mission, you thought you might get choked up and there might be some tears. What are your thoughts landing Discovery here for its 39th and final flight.
Yeah, I think, following on with what Steve said, for me, I feel like I have an emotional tie to Discovery, to the space shuttles, and to KSC especially. And I think, it was kind of neat today while we were still in the spacecraft, still on the flight deck. I mean, we ran through almost every step of closing the vehicle down before it gets handed over to the convoy team that you could. And we had our astronaut support person up there who, would normally, get us out of there and then take over that for us. But I think it just felt kind of good to, to bring it as far as we could here at Kennedy. And walking around under the vehicle, I saw so many familiar faces. So much of that, that passion that we talk about that people have working on these vehicles, that, that's where it really was starting to hit home for me. And I think the more time I have to talk to more of those people, the more emotional or the more of an impact it's going to have. And I have to say again, though, just how great it is to see that these people with that passion have the pride that goes along with it and are happy for every day they've had to work here and wouldn't trade it for anything. So, thanks.
Yes, over here in the front.
Hi, Robert Perlman with CollectSpace.com. For Steve Bowen, your previous crew, the last crew of Atlantis, before leaving Atlantis, left your decal on board with your signatures.
We don't know where that came from.
I was wondering if you might have done the same on this vehicle as a crew, or if you did any other activities that were commemorative of nature to mark Discovery.
Actually, Steve made a really good point about that. You really want to leave the vehicle in the condition that it existed in, so that people can understand and see it once you put it on display in the format that it was, the way we worked on it, the way the technicians put it together, the way the engineers saw it. And so I really didn't want to leave anything there to really mar it in any way.
Jim Siegel, Celebration Independent Newspaper. Bill Gerstenmaier has shared with us on several occasions in the last few weeks that there are some sort of negotiations or discussions going on about having a commercial company take over one or more of the shuttle vehicles. And I wonder if you had a comment for us about the airworthiness and the appropriateness of continuing to operate the shuttle vehicles for the next 5-10 years.
Let's see. I know about the proposal that's out there as part of, there's multiple commercial proposals out there, and that's one of the proposals. As far as, the viability of that with the competition, that's going on right now, we are not privy to that, so I really can't answer that question. As far as being able to fly the shuttles 5-10 years more, it's certainly doable. The question is, do we have the resources to be able to pay to do that? In terms of what it can do, I believe 2 flights a year would keep the station fully supplied, up mass and down mass. So from a space station standpoint, it obviously be very advantageous to do that. The agency and the nation has chosen to go in a little bit different direction here, and so we'll have to see how all that plays out. But as far as it being able to fly 5 or 10 years more, I think the fact that Discovery landed today in perfect condition tells you that it could.
So it's robust enough. It's robust enough to do that.
I think it's robust enough. I mean, you have to take really good care of it. You really have to check everything. You have to very much attention to detail and very, very good management of everything. And you really have to stay vigilant with any spacecraft, and the shuttle's certainly no exception. So I think if you're very disciplined about how you do that, like we are now, and do our very best to do that, yeah, I think it's viable.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Ken Kramer for Spaceflight Magazine. This question's for anybody. Can you give us an update on when the Robonaut might be unpacked? And also tell us about your experiences of seeing the space station with all those vehicles there.
Anybody?
As for Robonaut, we were the delivery team for that as a technology demonstrator, and will help us try to figure out what a anthropomorphic or a humanoid type robot can do for us. It's a very early prototype, but I think just by having a form that's more resembling of us it excites a little bit of imagination. I think Dr. Coleman will be unpacking Robonaut sometime in the next very few weeks. Hopefully we've accelerated that a little bit by getting them ahead on some of the other tasks. As to seeing the station, as you know, Nicole and I actually lived up there long-term for a while. I spent 197 days, I think, up there in 2009. It was a magnificent stack at that time. It was my home. It was a laboratory. It was an incredible place to live and to view the Earth. And I couldn't imagine it being bigger or better, but it is. It was a few modules bigger. We delivered yet another module. And of course, we had the Japanese and the European transport vehicles there. And with the addition of the cupola, it's even more magnificent than I left it. I didn't think that possible. It's breathtaking. And the view we get from the shuttle, as opposed to what I saw from the Soyuz, is just magnificent. It's almost unbelievable that we put that much mass and that much pressurized volume up there.
Hi, James Fink with Plainville Citizen. You know, I've got 4 children at home that are very excited about what you've been doing, one of which declared that she's going to be an astronaut when she saw you launch the other day. I was wondering if any of you had some words of encouragement for our next generation of astronauts that are looking forward to what NASA is going to bring us next.
Well, let me start that and then hand that over. Because I have 5 children. Gotcha. That's right. One is thinking about it. The first thing is that when you look at the people involved in the business of space right now in the U.S., we're doing a lot of hand-wringing and nail-biting about what our next step could be, should be. That will gel out. I'm not too worried about that. So the first news for the kids is don't get caught up in that. Look at what we have. We have an international partner who's able to launch us up there and back. We have 3 countries now putting men in orbit. We have a magnificent station that's just really at the end of its assembly phase, so starting its utilization phase. We've got telescopes that are finding planets like crazy in other solar systems. I don't think there's ever been a better time to think about being an astronaut. As far as commercial space for us, the more space, the better. And the world that your children grow up in is going to be, I think, much more rich in some ways than others. We won't maybe have these magnificent shuttles, which have done such a great job of building the station and other things. But there will be space flight. There will be a lot to do. What else? Anybody else?
I look at it as this is a transition period, and like all transition periods, like in aviation, after World War I, we had airplanes, but we really didn't know what to do with them. If you asked someone back in that era, what are we going to do with an airplane? A lot of people would say not much. There's not much to do with them. And then we had the Roaring '20s, and the time period where airplanes came along and we kept pushing the edge and pushing the envelope. And now, if I ask someone what's an airplane good for, people could name thousands of things, and that's how space is going the same way. We're kind of in this transition period, and there's always uncertainty in transition periods. That's just the name of the game. But I have no doubt in my mind that we're going to be moving on to Mars, Moon, all those places. We'll be exploring the solar system at first, and someday we'll be exploring the galaxy. So it's just a matter of time. Just when, or when are we going to get to these next steps? And any transition period can be challenging.
Right, we have a question right over here.
Denise Chow at space.com. A question for Alvin Drew. On your first spacewalk, you became the 200th person to work in the vacuum of space. I was just wondering if you could characterize what that experience was like for you.
First and foremost, I was just glad to be part of that club of spacewalkers. The number really wasn't that important to me. As far as I was concerned, there's really 2 big names in spacewalking. There's Alexei Leonov, the first person to actually go out into space, and Ed White, who obviously didn't have the benefit of Alexei Leonov's experience because of the Cold War, who became the first American to go out into space. And the rest of us are all tied for 3rd place as far as I'm concerned. But it was a wonderful experience to go out there. For me, it was the sense of going out there. I think I don't know if we were over the African or the Amazon jungle. We went outside, but I just remember being struck by the sunlight, the clouds, and these broad, wide brown rivers down beneath, and just being taken aback by the whole thing, and reminding myself, okay, I've got 6.5 hours worth of work to do and about 7.5 hours worth of things to get done in that 6.5 hours. So I better take in the view, remind myself, remember what it was, and then press on quickly and get the job done. That was fun. Of course, getting the jobs done after 2 spacewalks is very gratifying, a very satisfying thing to do.
James?
James, excuse me, James Dean with Florida Today.
Steve, Atlantis is launching in a little over a month, so plenty of time to jump into that flow if the opportunity arises. But I wondered if any of you could talk about how you said that Tim was up there with you guys in more than spirit.
Well, he actually helped us do the EVAs on the ground, which I greatly appreciated. You know, just having him in mission control, just to be able to question things and know that if I was doing something that wasn't quite right, he was going to step in and help me out. I greatly appreciated that, and so he was definitely there with us outside when we were doing our spacewalks, and that was fantastic to have him there.
Yeah, I mean, he was with us every day, the whole time we were there. I mean, he was a big part of this mission from the very beginning. You know, as you go through the training process for a mission, and you develop this mission, as a crew, you're involved in that whole development process. So he was involved, you know, obviously through the spacewalks, because he led the development of those, and that actually enabled Steve to jump in with, a month to go, and to go train those spacewalks and do them successfully. Additionally, he was our MS2 flight engineer on the flight deck, and trained alongside Al and Nicole in those positions for ascent and entry, and all of his work in developing the crew coordination allowed Al and Nicole to take his role on the flight deck as well, and be able to do that. So, you know, everything we did, Tim touched, and so he was with us all the time. And you know, we really wish he could have been there with us.
That's all the crew will have time for right now. They're on a rather limited schedule this evening. So that will be our final question, and that will conclude this press briefing and our STS-133 mission coverage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Space Shuttle Discovery, the veteran spacecraft of NASA's Shuttle fleet, waited on Launch Pad 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida to take its final bow, prepared to soar into space for its 39th and final mission. Commander Steve Lindsay, on his 5th shuttle flight and 3rd on Discovery, led the way out of the operations and checkout building where the astronauts donned their orange flight suits. Striding down the ramp and waving to a cheering crowd with Lindsay were pilot Eric Bowe, mission specialist Alvin Drew, Steve Bowen, Nicole Stott, and Michael Barrett. In an extraordinary gesture of respect for each other and the vehicle that will take them into space, the crew stopped for a quiet moment and huddled together before their momentous journey.
Go for main engine start. We have main engine start. 2, 1. Booster ignition and the final liftoff of Discovery. A tribute to the dedication, hard work, and pride of America's Space Shuttle team. The shuttle has cleared the tower.
Space Shuttle Discovery majestically lifted off the pad at 4:53 p.m. Eastern Time, February 24th, on its STS-133 mission to the International Space Station, its final flight. As the shuttle closed within 600 feet of the space station, it performed its rendezvous pitch maneuver, or backflip. Discovery was the first spacecraft to perform this maneuver on its return to flight STS-114 mission. The backflip gives ground teams in Houston a chance to look over the heat shield to confirm it's in good condition before docking. For the 13th time in its flight history, Discovery was guided gently toward the station's docking port. A warm welcome from the Expedition 26 crew greeted the Discovery crew as they glided into the orbiting outpost through the hatch. The first activity for some of the crew the next day was the installation of the Express Logistics Carrier 4, or ELC-4, onto the station's S3 truss section. Pilot Eric Bowe and mission specialist Alvin Drew controlled the arm from the flight deck of the shuttle, while mission specialist Michael Barrett and Nicole Stott manned the controls of the Canadarm2 from inside the cupola module to grapple the carrier and move it into position. Drew and Bowen spent the next night camping out in the Quest airlock after breathing pure oxygen to cleanse their blood of nitrogen in preparation for their first spacewalk. After stepping out into space, Bowen, perched at the end of the station's robotic arm, said he got the view of a lifetime before he began working on replacing the ammonia pump. Bowen, who replaced Tim Copra on the mission after a bicycle accident kept him earthbound, was in constant contact with Copra, who was at mission control, helping out from the ground, answering questions and providing input. Back inside the station from his first spacewalk, Drew looked like a kid that had just come back from a theme park.
How was it?
That was awesome. Oh man, that was great. The views were outstanding.
You looked fantastic out there. Looked totally natural.
I was faking it really well.
Faking it a little bit? All right, go get some food.
All right.
On Tuesday, Stott and Barrett grappled and lifted the Permanent Multipurpose Module, or PMM, loaded with equipment and supplies, including Robonaut 2, out of Discovery's payload bay using the station's 58-foot robotic arm, and installed it to the Earth-facing port of the Unity node, completing the assembly of the ISS. After the spacewalk, Mission Control radioed the joint crew members that mission managers had approved an extra day for the shuttle mission to set up the interior of the new Permanent Multipurpose Module. Lindsay and Station Commander Scott Kelly opened the hatch on the PMM, and after a brief christening ceremony, all of the crew members floated into the 21-foot-long module. Robonaut 2, still encased in its travel box, was gingerly moved out of the PMM to its storage area and secured in place for future use.
Discovery and ISS, please stand by for the President.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Mr. President. Welcome aboard the International Space Station.
Well, look, I wanted to call and just say how personally proud I am of you and all that you're accomplishing.
A special long-distance phone call was made from President Barack Obama to the 12 members on board the station, congratulating them on their accomplishments. The entire crew was occupied transferring and stowing thousands of pounds of equipment, setting up racks and science equipment. After 8 busy but satisfying days aboard the station, it was time for the Discovery crew to leave. Kelly wished them fair sailing, a
a safe trip back to Earth, and a warm goodbye to Space Shuttle Discovery and appreciation for its outstanding support of the station. Fond farewells shared, hatches closed, the shuttle undocked with the traditional ringing of the ship's bell.
Discovery departing.
Commander Lindsay spoke about this final day in space, final voyage for Discovery, and its remarkable history.
On this final day on orbit, when I think about Discovery, I think about all that. I think about all the people that went before us on this vehicle, but mostly what I think about are the thousands and thousands of people across the Space Shuttle program these past 30 years who designed this vehicle, built this vehicle, have taken care of this vehicle, in operating this vehicle, not just from the cockpit, but also those who operated this vehicle from the ground. And that is her greatest legacy to me.
A last and a first took place on the same mission when the crew's wake-up song was performed live from Mission Control in Houston by Big Head Todd and the Monsters, singing their song Blue Sky on Discovery's last day in space. New song for the world. Good news for Mission Control informed the crew that they were cleared for a deorbit burn on the first landing opportunity at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The day was clear as a bell and picture perfect as Discovery broke through the atmosphere from a brilliant blue sky, trailing the twin sonic booms, heralding its approach. Landing for the final time on runway 15 at Kennedy Shuttle Landing Facility at 11:57 a.m. Eastern Time, March 9th, Discovery completed a flawless 13-day mission. To its credit, Space Shuttle Discovery logged an incredible 39 missions, a total of 365 days in space, traveling 148.2 million miles by the end of its remarkable history.
And Houston Discovery for the final time. We'll stop.
I'm extremely proud of this crew here. My crew did a fantastic job. The ground teams did a fantastic job. We accomplished every objective we set out to do then, and plus a whole bunch more. It was a privilege to be able to be in charge of her for just a couple of weeks, and I'm sad to give her back, but I couldn't imagine giving her back into better hands than this group right here.